Okay, this is it. This is my 30th, 29th, 28th, 27th, 26th, 25th, 24th, 23rd, 22, 21st favorite board games. Hi, I'm Will. This is a channel where I like to play board games, I like to play solo games, do some reviews, some playthroughs, some multiplayer content, some discussions, and probably run and change my shirt between every filming. And we are down to my 30th to 21st favorite board games of all time. We've been counting through the top 100, and then next episode, and then the one after, I will have some friends in the studio. We will have John and Farhan and Nabil will join me for our top 20 favorite board games of all time. Of course, this is purely subjective. These are our favorites. You know, if they are your favorites too, fantastic. Let us know in the comments, or if there's something you think we've missed. Maybe I mentioned it in the previous video, or maybe I should really know about it. Of course, there's lots of games, even some on the shelves here, that I just haven't played enough to get to my top 100, but I have played an absolute ton of board games in my life, and I would just love to share my favorites with you, because I love them so much, and they're so much fun, and I hope you get some joy out of them too. Starting with number 30, this is Champions of Midgard. And caveat, with at least the Valhalla expansion. I would add all the expansions because they're great. But the Valhalla expansion, just say reduces the luck or adds alternate strategies. This is a Viking-themed worker placement game. You are placing your workers around the board, collecting fighters in the form of dice, getting resources, building along ships, and kind of pledging where you're going to go fight. And then, once everybody's placed their workers, then you are assigning dice, and you are fighting the monsters that are in your world. There is always a troll who will, cause some blame and stuff to be handed around, which counts as a negative resource. You are going against the Draugr, which are kind of the zombies, the Viking zombies. If you have the expansion, you're going to the mountains. You are hunting for food, and you're going on these epic journeys to go fight even wilder monsters overseas, where your Vikings may never come back home to live and tell the tale. And it's fun. There's dice rolling. There's some luck. The Valhalla expansion mitigates that, because if your guys die, they go to Valhalla in the form of little chits, and then you can trade those in for bonuses or fight epic Valhalla monsters and so on. And it makes bad rolls less painful because you still get something out of it. And sometimes you may even want your guys to die because you want that bonus in Valhalla. So it adds some neat trade-offs there. I wouldn't play without it. Number 29 is Fantasy Realms. This is a very small box card game. You could take it with or without the expansion. The expansion's great. It's not necessary. This is a hand management card game. So you have your hand of cards. At the end of the game, you will still have your hand of cards, and you score everything in it. On your turn, you're either drawing a card off the top of the deck and then discarding a card, or you're picking up a card that was previously discarded and adding it to your hand. And it's all about making the best hand possible. And of course, everything in your hand interacts in different unique ways. Some will create penalties if it's with other stuff, or will give bonuses if it's with stuff. Or it might say, like this, dragon, makes all the princesses blank so they don't count for anything, or whatever. There's also some like real far stretch strategies where, like, if you have these exact cards, then you get a ton of points. So it's really interesting all the time, really fun, just to make the best possible hand. And there's interesting ways of kind of interacting with the cards and with the expansion too. And every time you play, it's quick, it's easy to get into. It burns your brain trying to think it through. And if you use the scoring app or the scoring website, it just helps make calculating those final things a breeze and make sure you don't miss anything. Highly recommended. Number 28 is Perseverance, a Castaway Chronicles. This is a large Mind Clash game. It's especially large because it's 2 games. So, I guess this is kind of a cheat. And I don't know if I've decided which one's my favorite of the two. Maybe this... Well, they both have good parts to them, but I'm just kind of, since it's one box, I'm going to throw it in here as a single number. So it is a dice drafting worker placement game, you could say. There's a pool of dice rolled, there's symbols on them. You take turns taking one and placing it on the board to activate something. You're getting resources, you're building huts, you are fighting off dinosaurs. In the first scenario, you are building up defenses and preventing the dinosaurs from rushing in. But every action you take draws more dinosaurs to that area, so you gotta be careful. And in the second episode, you are going out into the forest, you're fighting off the dinosaurs, you're exploring the forest to discover new locations with new abilities and new actions. And both of them are fantastic. They both have some very cool player interaction with the way the area control works based on your color of how much huts and dice and workers and things you have of your own color in those areas. And it works together great. Then there's a great solo mode too. And I'm really excited to see what episodes 3 and 4 bring. Number 27 is Dune. This is the classic Dune board game, but the revamped version. With the newer artwork, and I do have a video already breaking down a bunch of this game and gushing over it, I guess you could say, because there is no solo. But and I've hardly played it too, but I loved it so much. I love the property, I love the game, I love what the game does, where it takes, basically a troops on the map area control game, which would have been a relatively standard game if you had stripped away what the factions do. And oh boy, the factions. Each faction basically owns part of the game, right? So it's like the guild owns a troop deployment. So if you want to put troops on the map, if you want to deploy troops, you have to pay the guild player. He gets the money to pay for other stuff. Right? If you want to, get cards, you gotta pay the emperor. If you want to, if you're harvesting spice, well, the Fremen come out of the desert. They practically own the desert. They're the best at harvesting spice, and at avoiding the storms and the worms. And anyways, each faction does some very unique things, right down to the last time we played, the Ben and Gesserit faction. Basically got to secretly wrote down, who they think is going to win in which round. And unfortunately, they were one off, so they didn't get the win. But, the tight games, the trickiness, the, mind control and stuff that goes on, the secret traitors that you have. You never know when one of your leaders turns out to be a traitor, and it totally turns the tide on you. And there's just so much cool things to happen. It really tells the story of Dune in every play. And whether you relive the exact story or not, it's always an interesting, unique, and memorable story too. Number 26 is 5 Tribes. This is a mandala type game. So kind of like the old mandala where you pick up the things and you drop them off. You are picking, there's a grid of tiles, and you're picking up all the meeples on the board, and you're dropping 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And the last one it goes on, then your action that you do is based on the color of that meeple you dropped off and how many meeples of that color are on that tile. So you get to do that action, but then you get to do the tile action. So there is something on the tile. Maybe it's a city where you put a tile or a city, meeple there that increases the value of it. Or maybe you get some cards, or maybe it's a magic lamp and you get a djinn, which gives you some special powers. Or maybe, you can also, if you clear off the tile entirely, so if you place your meeples and they're all of one color there, and you get them off, if you've removed the last meeple from that tile is now yours, and that's worth points at the end of the game. So the puzzliness of where to place your guys off is very interesting. The different ways to victory and ways to get points are also very interesting. There's some set collection. You have to bid for turn order, which is also a weird kind of sticking point where you're like, you may see a great move and bid low, hoping that no one else sees that same move, or you see someone else bidding high, and you're thinking, wait, what am I missing here? And so that's interesting. You're bidding for endgame, like you're losing your endgame points too. So fantastic game, great production, very brain burning, but so much fun. Number 25 is Iki, I-K-I, Iki, and this is a Japanese themed game where it's essentially a rondel. First, you're in turn order, turn order is set by how good you are at fighting fires, of all things, and then you are placing your meeples on this track of 1, 0 to 4, and then in that order you're actually playing. And then when you're playing, you are potentially hiring a new worker, placing his store or around the board and around the market, and then you're moving your big guy around the board in the one giant rondel, stopping at stores to activate them. If it's your friend's store, it elevates his worker there, or not his worker, but the store owner, and potentially unlocks greater and greater revenue for him. Eventually he'll come home and give you endgame points. You can collect fish and tobacco and things that, again, will give you more endgame points. But of course, you always have to watch out for the fire, because every few rounds, a fire randomly sweeps through somewhere, and if you don't have enough high of a firefighting stat, or beside someone who does, then you're going to lose some buildings. Great game, absolutely stunning artwork and design components, and it's relatively breezy to play, a lot of neat strategies, and it's just so much fun every time. Number 24 is Space Base, and this is a wild, crazy game. Especially once you add the expansions in, it starts off slow, but then it ramps up. You roll a dice, you activate things that match the dice. So, for example, if you have a 2 and a 6, you can activate the 2 slot and the 6 slot, or you can activate the 8 slot. And then you can buy new cards to add to your board. Older ones get flipped over and tucked into the top. Now, when it's an opponent's turn and he rolls a dice, if the tucked in top cards are on the right numbers, you can get free triggers of those cards. And so by the time you've got a bunch of them tucked in there, it's not even your turn. You're just getting tons of free resources and things and points and activating cool abilities. And it just keeps you engaged and going the whole game long. Eventually, you want to buy these big expensive cards that permanently block off your boards, give you whacks of points, and you're racing to 40. The expansions are highly recommended, and they add things like miniature dice that have a 1 in 6 odds, but by the end of the game, you're rolling like a fistful of these things all the time and getting tons of resources, and so much fun. And like spaceships and to spend to do different things and new special abilities, and it just gets wild and fun. And because of the bonuses in other players' turns, even at higher player counts, it still works extremely well, and it's just a blast the whole time. Number 23, I realize I'm pretty late to the party when it comes to this one, and this is Agricola, the revised edition. I don't know why I ever jumped on Agricola before. Maybe I just never had the chance, I've seen it played at my board game groups, but I never really had a chance to jump into the game. And always kind of saw it as just like a beige Euro, never really tried it. Until one day I did, and realized that it still holds up and is fresh even today. And it's a worker placement game that has an increasing number of spaces to visit each round with newer and better stuff. And there are also small spots that pile on more. So if nobody takes the wood, even more wood gets added to that pot. So it becomes even juicier at the end of the round, or next round. And then you're building up your farm, you're building fences, you're getting animals, you're planting fields, you're converting things to food, you're feeding your families every few rounds. And all this is pulled together with a card system that really changes up each game and makes each game feel unique, because you're never going to play the same card in the same order or have the same cards. The turn order and placement really matters a lot. And at the end of the game, you have this nice little farm with animals and things and little animal meeples, and you feel like you've accomplished something. You've built up your house. You've got, a wood stove, and you've no, it was stove, yeah. And you feel like you've accomplished something, whether you win or not. It's great fun. I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I will say that if you leave out the cards, and I know the cards are a lot of fun, but if you leave out the cards, this actually makes a surprisingly good kind of like gateway plus game, where friends who are maybe unsure about jumping into a heavier board game, but want to try something different, and they like the pastoral theme. Leaving the cards out really lowers the complexity and gives away some of the experienced player advantage, and then it makes for just much quicker, easier place workers and get stuff. It's kind of the family variant. I don't know if it's even in the current rulebook or not, but it was in the older one, and it really works well. Number 22 is Maracaibo. This is another big Alexander Pfister big box game. You are moving kind of like in a giant rondelle around Maracaibo, which I think is non-Jamaica, is it? Anyways, it's in the Mediterranean somewhere. No, not Mediterranean. Maracaibo is in the tropics somewhere. Anyways, you are traveling around. You are visiting different locations to use multi-use cards to either fulfill requirements or complete events. You are getting funds. You're placing like workers that create essentially new spots, so the next time you come around, you can visit them. You are building up a tableau of cards that give you bonuses and end-game scoring and income and all kinds of cool stuff. You're upgrading your pirate ship. Well, not pirate ship. You're upgrading your ship to be able to have better bonuses and do cooler things. And there's also a separate kind of exploration track where you can move a separate meeple along. He's kind of going the long way, and he can pick up all kinds of bonuses and things too. It is a very cool game that is very player dependent in terms of speed of the game. If everyone's just taking their time and moving slowly around the board, the scores are going to be bigger at the end, and everyone's going to have more things. Or do you want to push it and you want to race around and go faster and get to those spots before other people? The AI for solo does work extremely well, but the AI does teach you to push it. Usually you learn to keep that pace up, which again is not necessarily for multiplayer, but it's very fun. There's a lot of stuff you can do and go for. You want to go heavy into fighting for different countries on behalf of Spain or England or France, and helping them kind of build up a presence around Maracaibo. Or do you want to, put people around the board to help you and set up colonies, or do you want to explore? There's just build different card engines. There's a lot of neat stuff to explore with. There's also a bit of a campaign system that walks you through a series of stories that may have some overlays that covers and changes things on the board and adds new cards to the deck. It's cool. It's not necessary, but it's nice that they included it. And the game is just a lot of fun every time I play it. I know I've said that a lot, but it is. These are all my favorite games. Number 21 is Sleeping Gods. And you probably saw I recently did a unboxing of Distant Skies, which is the new Sleeping Gods. The original one has proven to be just a epic game. And I say that because a single run-through could be 10, 12 hours, which is a lot. It's not quite at Seventh Continent length for a large run-through, but it's still quite long. I would probably recommend playing on normal mode because easy runs a little long. But there's so much to see and explore. You'll never take the same path twice. You may never encounter whole sections of the game in all your time playing the game. Just because of the nature of it and the choices you make lead you in different directions. It is a very story-driven game where you are referencing stuff in the book and looking at where to go next. And different keywords trigger off of other keywords. And, if you have this keyword, you can go here. But if you have that keyword, you can go there. And then comes the ship management, moving around and keeping your ship in proper order and feeding your people and as a means to healing them and to giving them more energy is a careful Euro-style management you have to deal with. And then the fighting. The fighting, once you encounter some monsters, the monsters build a grid system with symbols on it where you're trying to put damage markers to cover over those symbols. And there's some interesting rules like splash damage, where you can start on one monster and then finish on the other monster for damage. And the monsters will hit you back after, but only the monster you started attacking on. That's where splash damage comes in. But also he'll hit you back, or the monsters will do things based on their uncovered symbols. So you want to strategically cover certain symbols to hurt their ability to get you back in different ways, or do you want to just cover over all their hearts and just defeat them entirely? So there's a lot of interesting back and forth there. There's some comboing you can do between characters. So this character goes first, he can let this character get a boost to his accuracy on their attack, then he can boost defense, and then this monster will hit him harder, but it's fine, his defense is higher. So there's lots going on, there's lots of cool card play and abilities and cool equipment you can get and special weapons, and it's just a huge sandbox exploration game of that will really keep you coming back. And there is a save system too, so if you can't take on the whole game at once, there is a way to put it all away. It does take some time to get it all away and back up again, but it's manageable. And for the quality of adventure it provides, there's not much that can beat that. All right, that was my 100 to 21 favorite board games. We are going to continue with 20 to 11 and then 10 to 1 with some friends who are going to be in studio here. And if there's any games you would love to recommend to us to take a look, please let us know. Or anything you want me to do a playthrough of on the video, I'd love to do that too. Thanks again for watching. I'm Will, and this is Cover Matt.